Good morning, everybody. I think the president is unable to join right now, but she will, I'm sure, join a little later. So we will get going with this wonderful talk about, the family and palliative care. And we have a very wonderful person, Dr. Pradeep Kulkarni. Basically began his career as an anesthesiologist, worked for over 25, 26 years, and then as an intensivist for another 5 years. He has been involved in palliative care for more than a decade, worked in a number of very good institutions in Pune. I had the privilege of meeting him in the Cipla Palliative Care Center, of course, the Dinanath Mangeshkar Hospital, Lokmanya Tilak Hospital, and of course, the Bharati Vidyapeeth. He is a section editor of the IJMPO. You have to tell us, Pradeep, what this IJMPO is. Of course, he's been involved with the Essentials of Palliative Care course. And right now, he is heading the palliative care department at the Meherbai Tata Memorial Hospital at Jamshedpur. So without much ado, Pradeep, please go ahead and give us your gyan. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. I would like to talk about the involvement of the family in care of the patient and improving the family satisfaction. We know the increasing number of patients which are being discharged from the hospital without supporting the caregivers or without preparing them to supporting the caregivers to care for the patients at the home. They are being discharged. And it is the responsibility of the caregivers to care for them. Almost they are working as associate healthcare workers. They are monitoring the patient, they are monitoring the investigation, they are monitoring the symptoms. At the same time, they are giving medications, they are taking the decisions when to move to the hospital. This ill-supported or ill-trained group of family members, they require help, and their satisfaction also is important when we think palliative care as a family-centered care. Addition to it, the Indian culture, which increases the responsibility more on the caregivers, it adds to the stress of surrogate decision makers. I'll be discussing about the topic in the following way. That is, next slide. Just compare the deceased or tree at the risk and the family where diagnosis of or a patient who is diagnosed with a life-limiting illness are staying together. Both of them, they are like to grow in the natural way, but with the presence of or some risk for the tree, presence of a patient with diagnosis or some risk for the tree, the natural course of the development would be prevented. It is this social structure, cultural background, and previous experience that forms the soil, and that will determine how the tree would be supported. The strength is provided by the roots in the form of family background, friends, peers, workplaces, community, and religion. They will try to grow the tree as much as possible. The trunk that is formed by the attitudes and behaviors and the coping mechanisms that will help the tree to grow in natural way. After the growth, few branches would develop in a proper way, provided the good medical service support from the palliative care is provided, or few branches may land up into conflicts and collusions. If the patient and family is cared in best possible way by the palliative care personnel, it will lead to better family satisfaction and provision of good fruits. Our duty as a palliative care physician is to work as a gardener, giving water, cutting the unwanted branches, and nurturing the diseased tree. Next. The disease is diagnosed, the family faces a lot of changes. Uncertainty. What type of treatment, how much time it will take, what expenses it will take, how effective that treatment would be. Next is helplessness. Hardly the family member is able to help the patient to reduce the suffering. They have to just wait what is happening, how the patient is undergoing treatment, like that. And at the diagnosis of a life-limiting illness, say for example malignancy, there is brushing with the mortality. Even if the carries better prognosis, that brushing aspect would be there with the family. Family would try to share the suffering, would try to protect the patient. If the family doesn't try to share between them, the patient or the family member may suffer in isolation. The roles change. The caregiver has to take additional role. The patient may lose a role, and then it is the next step is marshalling of the resources. Whatever resources family had, plus family would like to take the help from the extended family, they will have to organize the finances, cope with the disease course. At the same time, maintaining cohesiveness of the family and maintaining daily living of the family, that is what the family members would like to go ahead. And these requirements change over the time from initial diagnosis to the terminal phase of the disease. Various factors in the form of site, stage, and prognosis. Then the toxicity of the treatment, the type of the treatment, the family stages, they will determine how the illness impacts the family. Next. These are the challenges which family faces across the stages. I have discussed about the few challenges family faces right at the diagnosis. At the initiation of the treatment, once the initiation of the treatment has done, family would feel somewhat relieved. Something has started. But at the same time, the family would be worried about side effects. No, previous slide. The family would be worried about side effects. Will the treatment be effective? They would be busy organizing the financial help. They would be busy helping or getting the help from the extended family and continue to work with their own works. At the termination of the active treatment, family and perceptions are different. Family feels now, yes, everything has been done, but patient would be feeling the symptoms all the way. Patient may not be in a position to continue to work. And even after the treatment is over, the patient would be identified not as a normal human being, but as a patient and a survivor. And that identity of the patient changes. In long-term survival, the patient and family would feel about what they have lost during the course of the illness, what opportunities they have lost during the course of the illness, the worry of the recurrence that always looms. Every decision the family takes after the long-term survival, that will be always the family would be thinking about what will happen to the patient. Will the disease again recur? And if there are different views between the patient and the family about how to go ahead in the course of the disease, that will cause differences of the opinion, and that can cause a widening of the gap. At the time of recurrence, again, there would be shattering of the hope. Till now, the patient was feeling better. The treatment was so-called effective, but now it has recurred. Then it raises the difficulties of new treatment, new symptom burdens, then financial stress, and brushing with the mortality that increases. At the terminal phase of the disease, the acceptance of the mortality has to be accepted by the family. It will involve discussions about how much curative treatment to continue. Should we limit the treatment? Where should be the place of care? How I'll be getting the information, and how I'll be supported with emotional help. That is what the family would be thinking. Next. This is a concept which is called as fading away. That would be felt by the patient family, that is spouse and children, in a different way. If the patient redefines what is called as fading away, that is, the patient who was living with cancer, if he or she detects she is dying with cancer, with some in this, if the patient feels he or she is losing weight, then diet is reducing, the weight loss is extreme, and the ability to work, which was previously he or she was able to do, is not able to do. If this is accepted by the patient, then it is better for the family to accept, to care for the patient, and as well as modify the things. And this leads to modifications in the burdening. Patient feels he or she is a burden to the family, but the family would accept that burdening if the patient redefines or limits its actions and helps the family to cope up with the situation. Something called as struggling with the paradox. That is, at times when patient is better, he or she would like to continue for some long time, but at the same time, in the days when he or she is not better, he or she would say, now it's we should stop somewhere and let the family have its own life. I am being burdened to the family. At the same time, the spouse would be thinking to have his or her own life, and at the same time trying to help the patient. It is difficult for the children to accept what is going on in the family. They would be working more towards their way of life rather than interfering. If the patient accepts or redefines in a proper way, the children also would be helping the family to go ahead with the decisions. If the patient starts fighting with the changes which occur with the change in rules, change in relations, it will be difficult for the family to accept. If the patient accept the change, family would help them to cope up. Then searching for the meaning. If a patient accepts the mortality, or with spiritual growth, the patient accepts the mortality, it will be easier for the patient to accept the meaning or purpose of caring for the patient and going through the journey of the caregiving. After accepting the meaning, the patient family would like to accept living as today is, not to bother about next or future day. Then if it is redefined in a proper way, there would be good discussion between the family, the spouse and children. They can spend good time, whatever time they have with each other. They can plan for maybe for legal transfer, then legacy transfers. Then the children can tell to the parent, he or she would be caring for the spouse. Our duty as a palliative care physician to support the families. Next. Let us define what family is. By legal definition, the family is a group of individuals related by the blood which live together and with reciprocal duties to each other. This is legal definition, but the palliative care definition can be something different. Next. Okay. Anyone who is closest to the patient, who has knowledge about caring and who is going to care for the patient, that can be called as family in palliative care. The family of choice, friends and extended family, anyone who is loyal, who loves the patient and with selflessness and genuine person would be caring for the patient, is called as family in palliative care. Next. We should know what the family expects from us so that we are able to provide good satisfaction to the family. Family would like to have a respect and recognition about the choices of the family, what they want, how they want to go ahead, then understanding of the situation and individual value. They would like us to listen to their individual story and help them their journey. Every family has different experiences. Even disease might be same, the experience is different, and our duty is to allow the family to have a reasonable journey across the disease process. They would like to have accurate information about the disease and outcome, and they would like to share the decisions. Next. Okay, these are the rights of the family in the form of information about the disease. Certainly, they would like to have safety. Whatever we are doing, it should be safe for the patient. That should not cause harm to the patient. Confidentiality and privacy should be maintained. And as a routine, we all in the palliative care try to maintain dignity about the patient. Next. Satisfaction is a different feeling. It is a combination of what the family feels that is required, or it is the perception of the need and then fulfillment of the need. These are two things which are involved in an emotion of satisfaction. What family requires, if that is fulfilled, that will lead to improved satisfaction. It gives sort of enjoyment, comfort, pleasure, and it gives pride for the family to care even if the journey is difficult. An opportunity should be given to redress a right or a wrong. Next. Patient and family relations are important. It is not only our duty. We can try to improve the satisfaction, but it is the relation between patient and families that will also determine how the satisfaction can improve. If the family and the patient, they share the treatment effects, the new symptoms, and come to the conclusion what treatment to be taken, how aggressive it should be, then what to do about new symptoms, that would be beneficial for the family. If spirituality is also shared, it will be beneficial for the family to go ahead in the course of the disease. Shared positivity, that will give good coping for the family, but extreme positivity from either side, either patient or family, that will lead to unnecessary aggressive treatments even when the treatments are not beneficial. Shared distress may be physical, financial, or future plans. If discussed nicely in the family, it will be better for the family to reorganize the resources and go ahead in the decision processes. Negotiating the roles. It is not only the change of roles that matter, it is the power change. And this power change should be accepted by the patient and family, then it is easier. Patient or family would like to protect each other. And if that is more and that leads to collusion, it will be difficult for the team to care for the family and provide family satisfaction. Next. With increasing types of treatment, with shift from the medicine from objective to subjective medicine and individualization of the treatment, it has become necessary. Why the satisfaction is important? When there was a specific treatment for a specific disease, it would not have been necessary to measure satisfaction. But with different treatment options available, increasing modality of the treatment, increasing complexities of the treatment, we have to measure what has helped the patient and family to go ahead. Next. We in the palliative care team would like to provide satisfaction, but when you are working in a unit, it is responsibility of whole team, right from security personnel right up to discharge of the family. It is a continuous process, and the support which we provide to the family for improving satisfaction, that should extend right up to home care services. Even when patient is being discharged, it is necessity to discuss with the family what they can expect at the home, how they should be helped by providing or encouraging extended family to help them and have a reasonable journey even in home care. Next. Let us identify what is family. You are well aware what is called as genogram. We should be able to locate who is family and who are the extended family members. This is a concept which is called as ECOMAP. Every family tries to cope up or tries to adjust after diagnosis of the disease, and they will try to take help from maybe from the neighbors, maybe from the peers. And this is the extended family, which is helpful to the patient, as well as family. Original family would be more involved in the patient care, and the extended family would be supporting the basic family unit to go ahead with the disease. This will help you to locate who would be helpful to the family after discharge of the patient, what are the medical services patient is taking. It can also help what is the how the spirituality is related to the family. The strong lines indicate deeper relationship. The weak lines indicate the weaker relationships. This can be sort of formal support and informal support for the family. Next. Okay, after locating the family, we should be able to assess what is the awareness, worries, expectations, and insight. Awareness is how much patient and family is aware about the diagnosis of the disease, the symptoms, treatment. Worries, that will allow us to know what the family is worried about, patient is worried about. Expectations will set us to know what is called as goals of care. If we are able to label the expectations, we'll be able to locate the goals of care and able to provide the services according to the goals of care. Insight is knowing how much disease has progressed, so that they are in a position to take the decision whether to go for aggressive treatment or limiting the treatment. With first or second meeting, you will be able to locate the decision maker or next of kin. Next of kin and decision makers can be different, and we should be able to locate them. There is something called as distress thermometer. We know it is useful for the patient, but it has been tried also for the family caregivers. Locating the distress, the family is suffering, and if it is more than 5, these are the families which require more support. We should be able to address or locate the demography of the family. Every part in the demography will help us where patient or family requires more support. Then life stage of the family also determines how the family will suffer and cope. Next. After locating the family, after knowing the expectations of the family, we should be able to identify whether this family is helpful or non-helpful. We have to ask the few, or we have to know how the family integrates the past, whether it describes positive and negative feelings also, or it describes only negative feelings. If family is expressing positive as well as negative experiences and feelings, we can label the family as helpful families. Then dealing with the feelings, if patients or if the family is ready to accept few paradoxical feelings, like patient may get better or may not get better, then the family can be helpful. If family always expects patient has to get better, even smallest uncertainty is not accepted, the family can be thought of as non-helpful family. The way family approaches solving the problem, that will also let us know how the family is. If family considers multiple options, it can be a helpful family. Next. Other points are how the family uses the resources. If family is ready to accept the open suggestions, ready to receive help, it can be called as helpful family. If the family doesn't accept help from anybody else and still tries to cope up, it will be difficult for the family to go ahead. That is unhelpful family. If the family is focusing on the concern of the patient's well-being, it's a good family. If they are focusing on own self, it cannot be called as good families. Next. After coming to the getting few answers, you will be able to divide the family into well-functional, dysfunctional, or intermediate. Well-functional family, usually they are expressive and cohesive, that is supportive family. Conflict resolvers would be non-expressive and non-cohesive, but they will become, they would be coming to the terms after discussion with the doctors or palliative care team. Dysfunctional families can be sullen, that a muted anger they would be having, and they can become hostile if they come under stress or if they're not tackled properly. Others are hostile families, they're non-expressive and cohesive. We have to find out what type of family it is. Next. Okay. These are few families which are usually more vulnerable. Those with extensive disease, greater levels of physical disability, they would be more prone for difficulties. These are the families we should be able to locate and help them go ahead. Situational crisis in the form of unwanted relocation on divorce that will add to the stress of the family. Then death or birth of another member that will lead to stress to the family. Socio-economic support determines how the family faces the disease. Rigid families would be vulnerable families. Unrealistic expectations by the family or the patient that will lead to unnecessary aggressive treatments. Fatalistic resignations in the form of no, everything over, we should not do anything, that will lead to stopping the treatment unnecessarily, which can be beneficial for the future. And mismatch between the resources and the stage of the disease. Our duty is to provide them utmost care and various resources so that they can go ahead in a better way. Next. Okay, these are gross suggestions for family interventions. For non-helpful families, always try to give one resource at a time. Don't give all the options at a time. Appreciate the disruption the family is going on, and multiple resources should be given in a different setting, not at one time. These families would not be helpful to undergo group therapies. They will require individual attention. Frequent family meetings would be required for non-helpful family. Consensus may not be reached, and all family members may not open up. They will keep on telling the same stories, and we have to inform them repeatedly, and it will take some time for the non-helpful families to come to the terms. Helpful families, support groups would be beneficial, and they would accept the suggestions given by you. We have to adjust according to the needs of the families, and effect of interventions would be varying depending upon the type of families. Next. We have to give education and support to the families depending upon the stage of the disease. And these misconceptions about the treatment may be symptom, they should be discussed with the families in open way. If required, another doctor, maybe oncologist, should be referred. They can take opinion of another doctor, and this education and support should continue even for home care. We have to encourage the communication within the families. We should accept communicating within the family that can add to stress in the family. But if the family is on one platform, they discuss between themselves, it will be better for the family to take the decisions and accept the happening. Family meetings is an important part of palliative care setup. Family meetings would be required at every stage of the disease. And every time we'll have to provide the information which may be related to symptom management, how much we are able to control, what better can be done, then treatment options, how they should go ahead, what is effective for them. and how much treatment should be taken. We should explain the limitations of the treatment also. Structural changes at the family should be informed if the family is facing the problem. That is how to reorganize the roles of the members in the family. Also, we should encourage the family members to have their normal life when the treatment is completed, or during even caring for the patient. They should be allowed to participate in their hobbies and open the channels to the extended families. Support groups and relaxation techniques would be comfortable for the family if it is possible. We should encourage that. Next. We should try to know how the family is adjusting spiritually to the experience of caregiving, and we should try to encourage the family to extract the meaning in the situation, or allow the family to think something in a larger way. For example, even if a young patient dies, young son dies, for the succumbs to the disease, the family should be encouraged. They should help the others, those who are suffering in the similar way. That will allow them to cope up and to go ahead in the future part of the life. Confronting the mortality. As it was discussed by Dr. Babita in the previous lecture, confronting of the mortality that should be discussed, or end of life care discussions should happen at every stage of the disease and earlier than end of life care. And after coming to the discussions about the end of life care, we can think about what the family wants regarding advanced directives. We should plan the dying process, allow them to have good time with the patient, and remembering the memories and planning for the future. Next. Why we should measure the family satisfaction? All of us, we are working in some group of the hospitals. The hospital is spending for us. Then we should be able to provide best possible care for what we have been given. It is quality improvement is always required for any hospital. The services which we are providing, it should be comparable to what other hospitals are providing. Preferably, it should be benchmarking for that particular hospital, and that will provide the satisfaction if measured. That will provide the professionals how to still provide better care where they are going wrong. Next. Okay, these are the various scales which assess the family satisfaction as well as needs. Satisfaction scales are satisfaction scale for family members receiving inpatient palliative care, then Can Help questionnaire, and FamCare. These are the scales which measure family satisfaction, and the comprehensive need assessment at CNAT-C and FIN and PNPC, they require the needs of the caregivers and patients. Next. I'll be discussing about the measurement of family needs. It should be needs assessment of the family caregivers of cancer survivors, and this is assessed over different stages: 2 months after the diagnosis, 2 years after the diagnosis, and 5 years after the diagnosis. These are 3 separate cohorts they have examined, and they have examined what are the unmet needs. Next. These are the demographic parameters which they have assessed, and every parameter that determines what are the needs and how the mental and physical health of the caregivers would be changed depending upon the parameters. Younger patients would require more help in the emotional background. Physical might be less for them. Then education, that will determine how the information need is more important for them. The financial need might be less if they are well placed. Previous experience allows the family to cope up in a better way that will reduce the psychosocial requirements, relation with the patient that will determine how much psychosocial help the family would require. Next. Okay, they have the need assessment, finance, family caregiver that determines 4 sets of unmet needs. One is psychosocial with 3 subunits in the form of emotional distress, relationship, and finding meaning. Next. These are medical unmet needs. Medical unmet needs can be in the form of providing best possible care, communicating with the medical staff, getting information about the cancer, understanding and navigating. And the last sub-factor is symptom management. Next. These are the financial unmet needs family would like to get help from. Enough insurance, providing the expenses, and taking care of the family expenses. Next. These are the daily activity needs. Caregiver, personal care, and balancing or relations with the family so that the patient is cared in a better way. Total 27 factors are considered, and then they are coming to the conclusion. Next. Okay, after 2 months post-diagnosis, what is important for the family or what are the needs for the family are as helping the patient to reduce the emotional distress, getting information, then getting best possible care for the patient and dealing with the lifestyle changes. And as the disease or the years pass, these requirements will go down, but dealing with the emotional distress continues, and we come to the conclusion that emotional health or the psychosocial unmet needs remain with the family despite of years passing on. And it is our duty as a palliative care team to help the family, to assess them and to help them to cope up and to meet their psychosocial demands. Next. These are few of the Indian studies, FamCare, that has been discussed or that has been researched at the TMH Mumbai, the respite model for palliative care that discusses how to help the families. After discharge, they have a separate unit other than TMH Mumbai. They will be helping the families to learn their few skills, relieve the symptoms, and then discharge the patient. Next. Despite of trying your best efforts, you may not be able to fulfill the satisfaction for the family. If there is difficulty in family functioning, incongruent needs of the patient and families, if we don't have frameworks underdeveloped from the hospital, or if there is conspiracies of the silence between the family and the doctor and patient, it will be difficult for us to complete or to provide the best possible satisfaction. Or if caregiver rejects the help what we are providing, it will be difficult for the family to accept. Next. Okay, insufficient resources. If hospital is ill prepared, that is one reason. If we cannot provide continuity of the care in the form of best possible home care, that will reduce the satisfaction. Health professional skills are lacking. Many a times it is difficult for the oncologists to locate end-of-life care. It is delayed referral, which reduces the satisfaction for the family. And if we do not plan what the family wants and how we can provide the care, again, the satisfaction would be less. Next. Okay. Few of us would be working in corporate hospitals, and this concept of total quality management, where the traditional management feels doctor is at the highest level, but when it comes at the total quality management, it is the customer and it is at the highest level, and doctor and nurses, they would be playing part of the team, and customer satisfaction is most important when total quality management is considered in corporate hospitals. It is the systemic support provided by the hospital, and it is continuous improvement by the team that will lead to the best possible satisfaction of the customer. Next. Ultimately, our role is to help the patient and the family who is unaware or unprepared what is going to happen, what they should do, what decision they should take, and how to cope up with the disease. Our duty is to help the light, to help a blind person to cross the road. Next. I would like to think these are the modifications, if done, that will add to the family satisfaction. In policy matters, leaves should be sanctioned for even for the caregivers, those who are caring for the patients. Normally, the leaves are sanctioned for the ill persons. Leave should be sanctioned also for the caregivers. Addition of the palliative care in UG and PG curriculum, that would be beneficial. Every state should have policy of palliative care, something called as voices studies. These are done routinely in the UK, that is views of informal caregivers regarding end-of-life care services. Every year, they keep the record of what has happened in the end-of-life care, how the family was satisfied. It is around 58 questionnaire, which includes what care was provided in last 4 months of the life, what were the places, where they satisfied with the GPs, where they're satisfied with the nurses, and their demographic data is recorded, and accordingly, the modifications are made in the health services. That is absolutely lacking in Indian context. The team has to be trained with soft skills. Continuous training is required. The use of telemedicine can provide the satisfaction of the family. Even we may not be able to provide every day the home care services. Caregivers empowerment with information and training that will add to the satisfaction of the family. Various websites, they are there, Caregiver Sathi or the Pallium India, which is providing help, emotional help to the caregivers, that will be helpful. And inclusion of the palliative care in government schemes. None of the schemes which are funded by the chief ministers of various states and Ayushman Bharat, they are providing palliative care inclusion. They are not funding for the palliative care. And I wish if things are as IAPC is trying to include all these things, it will be better for the poor families to have a reasonable satisfaction. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep, for absolutely super talk. Okay, I think all this has come out of years and years of experience that you have had. So Arun, can you take the questions, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kulkarni. Everybody has appreciated the concept of your family tree and others. There are not many questions, but many comments. But there is one question about how to approach a family where compassion fatigue has set in patient care. Dr. Kulkarni, please.
Yeah. Compassion fatigue, that means overwhelmed family. Compassion fatigue is overwhelmed family. We should appreciate the efforts done by the family, but still we should inform them that even they have cared in a best possible way, there are limitations of the treatment, and we should provide them the best possible options which are beneficial to the patient. What I would like to say, our target should be preferably patient care, and family satisfaction should be byproduct of best possible care.
Thank you. And also there are resources for compassion fatigue where people can look into how to deal with compassion fatigue. Right. Apart from their role in caregiver. One more question is that any role of close friends
certainly,
when you talk about family?
Certainly, this is extended family, and that's why I'm saying we should have EcoMap routinely assessed for the family. And EcoMap is again a dynamic process that will keep on changing. And if we are able to locate who are helpful to the patient, we should certainly get their help.
Karkasha has a question about family well-being versus just a moment, generic well-being and caregiver burden. Any ideas on that?
I'm not getting the question.
So she has posted in the chat box a short discussion. Caregiver burden versus generic well-being.
Generic well-being, that means? I'm not getting it.
Yeah, even I don't know. Karkasha, would you like to unmute and talk?
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My question pertains. We often talk about families suffering in the process while the patient is obviously suffering.
Yeah.
We've seen a negative sense of being in terms of caregiver burden, but there's also this novel concept, not necessarily novel, but a concept of generic well-being. It gives something to the family to look forward to in terms of caring for the patient. There's usually not always a negative feeling, but there's always there's sometimes also this feeling wherein they get caring for the patient gives them an opportunity to look forward, give them a goal and meaning to their life.
Positive effects of caregiving. We should encourage the family to talk about that also.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
There are no further questions. If anybody would like to ask anything to Dr. Kulkarni, I would request you to unmute and get your question, please. Because we have 3 minutes before 7:30.
Arun, can I give a comment, please?
Yes, sure. Why not, madam?
I am so sorry. First of all, again, there was some time confusion between two other events. So I just want to thank you, Dr. Pradeep and Dr. Nagesh again for rescuing everybody. So I just want to say that family discussion was more important during the COVID time. I have seen during the COVID time, it was not like in onco and in any chronic illness, we discuss with patients something. But in COVID time, we were not able to discuss, and I have seen that at least 20 grievances are pending out of 350 people died. So it is, and as a palliative care physician, I think we understand and we explain to the patient everything. But when there is no time, I think many times we are unable to discuss. But this is also important, that whether you have time or not time, taking family into the at every stage, it will make a lot of difference, and it will reduce the unnecessary grievances, unnecessary legal litigation and everything. And their satisfaction is equally important as the patient satisfaction. Thank you very much. And I think our next lecture will be from Dr. Sunita, and then we will have a 2-week break, and then we will start the next IAPC Academy lecture series.
I think you've really distilled, thoughts from practical plus also what is there in literature. And I'm sure that this will serve as a very good guide for people when they need to look at how one needs to involve the family. Because family, the role of the family, the circumstances the family is, which are so very well shown, also goes a very, very long way. Particularly in a country like India, where we call that ours as a collectivistic society, where we surrender part of our autonomy to the family as a natural thing. Okay, so thank you very much. I think it's 7:30, so we can end the meeting. So all of you have a safe week. Take care of yourselves, and we will meet again next week.
Thank you.
Next Monday. Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you, everybody.